Hi, I'm George Nordhaus, and today we are going to be talking about something that's near and dear to every independent insurance agent or every agent's heart, and that is producer compensation and management. And oftentimes we feel that our whole business boils down to how are we compensating our producers? Are we doing it right? Is there a way that we can do it better? Well, a guy that I think has done a lot of study on it, and know is Al Diamond, with Agency Consulting Group. Al is we've talked about him a lot. If you haven't seen his interviews here and his picture and everything else, as you can see, he is one of the top consultants in the country, all across the country, as a matter of fact. He publishes the Pipeline. IMMS members get that automatically, and he's been consulting with agencies for 30 years, and we've worked together for, gosh, it must be 30 years. And I've learned so much about agencies, about agency management from Al. But today we're going to talk about something that absolutely is just the core of how to run an agency. And it's something that a lot of people talk about, but Al's really put it all right here in writing. Al, what's it about?
Well, this is about compensating producers, and it is sales organization. There are a lot of insurance agencies out there. I'd say a vast majority of insurance agencies out, they don't sell insurance. And a producer compensation program for them should be handled differently than we do for more aggressive agencies. Here's the definition of a producer. A producer is someone who spends the customers.
I got you.
But a producer's main concern question there is, does the agency have a sales culture? This for 20 or 30 years. An agency with a sales includes new business sales and overall growth for generating and promoting sales. This isn't a reaction to people calling them, asking for quotes. This is an outreach to clients and prospects and generating new relationships from them. And they have a defined sales goal for every producer in the agency. It's not a toss-up in the air. It's not a we will do as good as we can do. Every producer has a sales goal, and those every result is tracked versus goals. That's the definition of a sales culture. Now, there is more than that. An agency with a sales culture also compensates producers based directly on sales results. Now, that doesn't have to be commission only. There are a variety of ways of compensating producer, but it's the compensation for producers is based on the size of their book of business and only goes up when their book of business goes up through new relationships. The agency with the sales culture has competitive products and prices, but not necessarily the lowest price in the market, nor the most products in the market. They just have a good cross-section of products. You can't be a sales culture when you only have a single product or only working for a single corporation. And a lot of our friends in the direct writing mode have a problem with enforcing a sales culture within their agency because they're basically a billboard for national advertising. The advertising is good, they get business. An agency with a sales culture actively recruits and consistently trains its sales staff. It doesn't just live on the sales results of 40 and 50 and 60-year-old producers. It's always looking for new, young producers. So there are two questions here. The first question is, are you a sales organization? And if not, would you like to be? To a real sales organization. Now, here's how we compensate producers. Producer compensation isn't terribly hard. You can pay people on salary. You can pay them on draw, or you can pay them on commissions, or a combination of each of them. And as you can see from the slide, the more risk the agency takes, the lower the rate that you're paying. If you're paid on a salary, the average industry-wide is about 25%. If you're paying producers on a draw, the average industry-wide is around 30%. If you're paying producers commission, it starts at about 33%. That's the normal sales expense of a commission production agency, and it goes up based on the size of the producer, and we'll talk about tiering in a little bit. Now, we also know that historically, we've paid producers a split commission based on new and renewals. The assumption was that it takes a lot of work to do new business and less to do renewal maintenance. We know from the last 10 or 20 years that that's no longer the case. It takes just as much work to keep the renewals as it does to get new business. So what we did about 10 or 15 years ago is we started converting to a base and growth model. We'll pay a certain rate on base commissions, that which they did last year, up to that level, and then we'll pay a bonus or we'll pay additional commissions on growth as an incentive, not because it's harder or easier. And that seems to work out very well because every new program, new, 10 or 15 years, but new compared to the industry, and it works like this. The larger the book of business generated may be very valuable to an agency. But if the same producer does 300, 400, or 500 people to support that person, all you need is the customer service support behind them. Defined by the agency budget and spending habits, every agency has a percent of revenue that it can afford to pay for producers. And one of the things we do when we go into any agency is we test that agency's financials to determine what percentage you're in the heart of New York City and are spending $80 a square foot on space. Agency, it may be more, where you have much lower expenses overall. So we consider that, and you should consider that as well. specific agents by the commission volume at which profits are high enough to cover higher commissions for any given producer.
Fascinating. You think an agency can do this for itself? I mean, are they going to know this much about their business?
We can provide any assistance.
Okay.
Now, we recommend at least 3 tiers of compensation for most agencies. For a beginning producer, up to a $200,000 book of business, 30% compensation, there may be an additional level where hold me to those numbers. This is just an example. The greatest incentive is achieved if the producer's compensation and he's at $180,000, and he knows he gets a 5% raise on every dollar. About commission for a book of business.
Book of business.
Now,
right.
We may split that differently for base and growth.
Mm-hmm.
Remember the base and growth formulas?
Yeah, right.
But the book of business defines what the average commission is going to be for that producer.
Okay.
Either pay the person on salary or pay him on draw or have a certain level of compensation in order to maintain the lifestyle of his family. He may choose year commissions translated into the salary for the following year.
Okay.
However, you're with no problem, I'd rather be on draw so that I can make more money as I go up the ladder, move them up. Better, I'll take the risk of straight commissions, allow him to go up to commissions. They can go up at any time. They can't. You have a specific problem. They have subsistence needs, and the longer they've been in business, the more their subsistence needs for subsistence levels. We're never afraid to pay producers based on their subsistence needs, but we're not going to pay for more than their subsistence needs. What does that mean? That means that you're asking them not what they made at their last for a new producer to put our money into his savings account. We have to pay him enough to meet his subsistence needs, otherwise he's in a panic. And when he's in a panic, expected to do, and we'll talk about that in just a minute, then we pay him what he needs to pay his bills every month. If he does more than we expect of him to do, then he's going to make more money anyway, and he'll have pay his bills out of agency funds when he hasn't earned it yet.
We're going to keep him hungry, aren't we?
We're going to keep him at a level where he can pay his bills as long as he's doing what we expect of him, but he can't get the luxuries in life. Called performance. This is extremely, extremely important. The concept that we're working under is that activity defines success. If he knows how to sell insurance and he's active enough, either for selecting a poor person who does not have sales capabilities, and George, he needs to take your test. Haven't given him the training. That's not his fault, it's ours. We need to give him the appropriate training. However, you cannot motivate someone to be active. He either has to be now we have a very simple formula in the first, second, and third year of a program for a new producer. In the first year, he should we're not putting a lot of money out, and it will be very easy for him to overcome that $20,000 target and go into the with a family and needs $50,000 or $60,000 or $70,000 to exist. We need to we all know that one-time's earnings, taking what he takes out of the agency and brings it back in revenue, still loses us money. And 33%. And if he achieves that, then he breaks out of this new producer compensation program and goes into the standard producer. The easier it is for him to get bonus amounts. What we found, though, is that the younger people tend to go after smaller accounts, and it takes them a lot of hard work to get it. A bit easier. We call it Play for Pay. That's the program. Area is where most producers are in when they're just entering the agency. Make sure that they have warmth and housing and clothing for them and their families, and safety, to make sure that they're not looking over their shoulder every 5 minutes thinking they're going to get fired. Compensation based on your prior year production. And you're going to respond to sales activity where you get one major account every 6 months or a year. Hitting your production levels is going to be done by consistent sales activity, and that sales activity is not meeting. Now, here's where pay for play really works for the agency. The activity, as I said, is not something that you can motivate a producer to do. He either does it on his own, or he would achieve the production results that would validate his compensation. Or have to fire a producer if he's not performing, because if he's not performing, he's going to can't meet his activity levels and pay him the least possible.
No,
this doesn't.
Excuse me. I mean, when you say activity levels, now we're talking
with people who need insurance.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Or with existing customers who have insurance.
Right.
This pay-for-play doesn't affect the compensation method, base or growth, new business renewals, however you do it. It allows for the home runs to occur, and you give bonuses for those home runs. And if there is a lowering all we're there to say is, we don't control your pay, you do. Be as active as we need you to be, and your pay is guaranteed. If you're not as active as you need to be, schedule is based on activity and on results combined. And a lot of us who either haven't had producers in the past or need to look at producers a little bit differently. We don't dictate what a producer should do, we lead them to do it. Validation schedule. It's based on activity and results, and it looks like this. It basically has it starts with a producer war board. It shows the process with that client and what the next action date is and the date that the next action should take place. And when he's to see them again. In many agencies where they use ACT or another contact management software, this is in. Now the goals breakdown is done for sales, proposals, appointments, and contacts on a weekly, monthly, and quarterly and annual basis. Producer goal tracking chart that we'd be happy to share with you that shows both the production and goals, sales, proposals, appointments, and contacts, and the producer I didn't invent it, but I applaud the ones who use it. What they do is they tell their producers, your compensation is triggered by your turning in your results. If you don't turn in your results, we're holding. All you got to do is give me this form, and you get your paycheck. I thought that was a neat way of managing producers.
I think it's a beautiful way of managing.
They manage themselves.
Right.
charts that do exactly the same thing for the quarter to date and the year to date. What your job is. It isn't to manage them. Just make sure every roadblock is down. So if the producer is not successful, the only thing he can say their flocks closely, hour by hour, not month by month. So not dictate. And what that means is that you have to lead by example. Be at work on time. I know do what you say that you're going to do. And instead of criticizing, you need to coach and counsel your producers. And the key important thing here is training. Train on a weekly basis. With video photography the way it is now, you can set up a video camera and you can do role-playing exercises on any form of sales and then watch what you do and watch what your producer does. Training keeps the knife sharp, even for your experienced producers. It raises morale because everybody's together and they realize part of taking down the roadblocks to success. And it certainly keeps the owners and service people famous years ago. It's called RIP. And you're transitioning your agency, go ahead and do that. In sales management. And so there's the key to producer compensation. If you're listening to this, you're an IMMS member, you get it. So all you got to do is ask for it. And
Al, this to me is Management 101. This is probably one of the best